Welcome to Containerized Conversations, where we try to containerize our conversation. I'm Jessica Caffarelli.
And I'm Josh Warhurst. Thanks for tuning in as we dive into some of our favorite topics, one containerized thought at a time.
And today is the continuation of our episode series on the 7 habits of highly effective people. Today, we talk about habit 4. Think win-win.
Yeah, so this habit starts with what he calls the 6 paradigms of human interaction. I'm just going to list them out here. So 1, win-win. 2, win-lose. 3, lose-win. 4, lose-lose. 5, win. And 6, win-win or no deal.
Yep.
And so these are basically when you have an interaction with another person, he categorizes every interaction as being one of these kind of situations. So, I'll summarize them based on my understanding. So, one, win-win is like each person gains something from this interaction. Number 2, win-lose is how a lot of people think about interactions, which is like, I'm going to win, you're going to lose. This is a zero-sum game. It's kind of like sports, right? One team wins, one team loses.
Yeah, a natural competition.
Yeah. And there's lose-win, which is the opposite, which is like, I'm going to lose, you're going to win.
Yeah.
That's kind of like, I want you to win. I'm going to sacrifice my own well-being for that to be the case.
Yeah.
Lose-lose, you both lose. There's a lot of people that sabotage relationships with this kind of goal, right?
Yeah.
They want the other person to lose and they're fine losing themselves, right?
Yeah.
So the other person loses. Win by itself, which is just, I don't care about what the situation is for the other person. I don't even know. My only concern is for me winning, right? Maybe the other person wins, maybe they lose. Doesn't really matter. What I care about is just winning.
Yeah.
There's no just lose. I don't really care about what other people do. I just lose.
I just want to lose.
I just want to lose. I just want to keep going down a spiral. Yeah, that's not one of the 6 paradigms of human interaction.
I mean, I could see why.
Yeah, but so the last one, the 6th one, is win-win or no deal, which I think he explains as we're both going to try to win out of the situation, but if that can't happen, then we're just not going to have a relationship, right? Because if I win and you lose, or if you lose and I win, that's not going to create a good lasting situation. So yeah, those are the basic 6 paradigms of human interaction. What do you think about this?
I mean, yeah. So I think this habit is really important to kind of understand the nuances and complexities behind it, because he's right. I do think in situations where you go into, because this habit is really focused around like when you go into conversations or meetings or some sort of event where a decision needs to be made. Right. That's when this habit comes into play. So it's not like everyday life. It's not like you walk in and say hello to someone or anything like that, but it's more so focused around like a technical decision needs to be made at work, right? Do you go with S3 buckets for storage share versus using DynamoDB for a database? Right. Something specific like that. And one person wants to use S3 and one person wants to use DynamoDB. Having this as a tool to better, have relationships at work, I think this habit is really strong. And so understanding the nuances behind a lot of these is really important. And knowing who you are also is really important. So perfect example is the lose-win. So I know a lot of people actually who have this mindset and mentality where they are so non-confrontational, so afraid of making a negative relationship or atmosphere that they will never say how they feel or where they stand or their own opinions, right?
Mhm.
They think lose win. They have opinions, and they get upset when their opinions aren't heard and they don't go with their decision, but they'd rather lose if the other person's going to win.
Mhm.
And I find, out of all the types of people that I've run into, I actually find that the most frustrating. And the reason is because I am such a win-win mindset. I want both of us to win. I want both of us to come to an arrangement that's mutually beneficial to each other. And when you run into someone who's a lose-win, it's so hard, nearly impossible, to really get out of them what their opinions are,
Right, 'cause
right?
they're fine with you winning, and you're like, "No, no, I want you to win too," and they're like, "That
Yeah,
doesn't matter." You're like, "No,
yeah,
no, no, it does matter. That's almost the most
yeah,
important thing is that we are
yeah,
both winning out of the situation, right, for the
yeah.
long-term stability of this relationship, right?"
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, it's like, because like, they'll tell themselves that this is what they want, but, like, if they're not totally bought into the idea, and they're not gonna really breathe that idea, they're not gonna, fight for that idea, they're not gonna be passionate for it.
Yeah.
So, it won't be a effective relationship with that person, and they won't effectively be able to work on that work because they don't really believe in it in the first place, you know?
Right. Yeah, I used to think of myself as a lose-win kind of person, right?
Mhm.
Because I saw how, for instance, like with a board game, right?
Yeah,
I thought it would be much better for me to lose and to have, say, somebody else win because a lot of people, like when they lose, they get angry. And
yeah,
I don't want that. And when
yeah,
I lose, I don't get that angry.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So I was like, I'm putting the least amount of anger into the world by
yeah,
losing and having somebody else win. Right. And I realized that like that's based on that dichotomy that or that paradigm of there is a loser and a winner. Right.
yeah,
I think that there are a lot of other situations, even including games, right?
mm,
Where you can have a win-win thing, right? You can have
yeah,
a soccer match that's a win-win. Yes,
yeah,
one team actually wins, right? But
yeah,
the other team comes away with like, "Oh, we should be thinking about that strategy. We should
yeah,
be, focusing on this. Like our defense is pretty weak, right?"
yeah,
You know, I think there is a way that you can actually make every single action into something where both parties are gaining from it.
yeah,
But early on, I was like, I just don't want other people to be bad because I can't control that. And I can kind of control it by losing so
yeah,
that they will not be,
yeah,
negatively.
yeah,
I don't want to put people into a negative mood. Right.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, and I can almost flip that on its head though, because, let's think about it like this. Your daughter's a little bit older and you just let her win all the time because you don't want her ever to be upset. But she might get bored with playing with you and then not want to play with you because you're not being competitive at all.
yeah.
It's boring playing with you. She always wins. Right? So in that situation, it's actually less beneficial for your relationship with her by letting her win and making yourself lose.
Yeah. I'll
Right?
kind of keep going with this metaphor for a second, which
Yeah.
is that I think that like, for instance, when you play a board game with somebody for the first time, right? I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of Go. I actually started in college my own Go club. I really like the board game Go, but it really applies to like most board games. When
Yeah.
you play a board game with somebody for the first time, if they win, they're going to want to come back and play a second time, right?
Yeah.
If they lose the first time, the number of people that want to come back is like 25%. It's really
Yeah.
maybe they saw something in there that they weren't doing and
Yeah.
they recognize that, but most people, when they lose the first time they play, they don't want to keep coming back, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's actually a total win-win if they win and then I'm thinking of it winning because, yeah, I lost the game technically. I
Yeah. Yeah.
designed it so I would lose,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'm gaining somebody who's into this thing now and we can go on and further play this game.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I think that's the nuance. There's like the label lose and win, but then there's like the mindset of did you win or lose, right? And
Mm.
so just like you said, like yes, you lost the game of Go, but in your that's not you didn't actually lose because you're winning. It's a pair because the same thing with the tech stuff, right? A decision has to be made. One person's decision's S3, another person's DynamoDB. And so someone is going to quote unquote win the decision. But
Mm.
like that's the thing is if you have a conversation with them and you try to find a win-win, in that win-win, the hope would be someone's paradigm or mentality or viewpoint would change, right? And so they no longer want to go with that other decision. You both agree that this decision's the right decision, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the nuance. It's not the fact that though you're labeled lost, but if you have a win mindset when you lost, and then the other person has a win mindset when they won, that is a win-win situation, even though someone physically did lose, right? Does that make sense?
I think it makes sense. Let's say we're talking about like logs, right? Where do we
Yeah.
store the logs, right? I might be coming from a position of I care about S3.
Yeah.
The other person might be coming from the position of I really want DynamoDB. I think there is a win-win where I'm
Yeah.
going to go with their thing. They're going to physically win. I'm going to learn about how I would never have thought this way of doing it is the correct way to
Yeah.
do it. I can see a win-win from that perspective. You can also imagine kind of rewriting it where you say, "Hey, I'm going to win by bringing them onto this journey with me to log into S3. They're going to gain from it because I'm going to mentor them through this whole process."
Yeah.
You know, yes, I've won because my solution is the accepted one that we're using at the company, but
Yeah.
they're going to win because they're going to have a deeper understanding of why S3 is a superior method to store logs.
Yeah.
I don't know if these are actually legitimate scenarios, but
No,
the
yeah.
fact is, the most important thing from win-win is the idea of thinking about the other person's situation, wanting
Yeah.
them to have their best case scenario, and at the exact same time, thinking about yourself and saying, I want to gain something out of this too, right?
Yeah.
I care about the other person's gain. I care about my gain.
Yeah.
Both are equally important. I think that's the really big insight of this whole section,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
if you
Well,
will.
and as it gets a little deeper into the chapter, one of the things that I highlighted in here that I really liked was one of the he goes into characters,
Mm,
like the types of characters you need to really inhabit this like win-win mentality.
mm,
And one of the characters he talks about is maturity. And again, the thing that I really like about this book is how it really takes words that we all think we know, but then it like gives like this like actual real world definition where you're like that's actually what it means. And so like this was one of them, which is maturity. And he says that, it's a balance between courage and consideration, which sounds like buzzwords, but he goes even deeper into the definition, which is the ability to express one's own feelings and convictions balanced with the consideration for the thoughts and feelings of others.
mm,
And like that's where it kind of clicked that idea of maturity, where it's like, you know, it's this idea of you having the courage to really say your side of an argument or your viewpoint or your feelings but also being very considerate to how the other person feels, so you're saying it in a way that wouldn't affect them emotionally,
mhm.
right? That's maturity. And that's like that was like, "Oh, okay." When people actually say like grow up, be mature, like that's what they're really telling you, right? They're telling you you're like whether they even know it or not, but what they're saying to you is learn how to say your own feelings without hurting others and be confident in doing it, right?
Right, because there's 2 pieces to this, which is 1, saying your feelings,
Yeah.
saying the things that I mean, my daughter, she's 1, right now, and she's really good at saying her feelings. I'm so frustrated right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Without much consideration for other people. I don't blame her. She's one.
Yeah.
She doesn't have a lot of time to get this right. But on the other hand, you can have a ton of consideration for other people, right?
Mhm.
You can say, I really care what other people think, but not really considering what you care about.
Yeah,
I
or the
think you can really,
courage to say it. Yeah.
yeah, you can go to the other side of the spectrum where you say, I really want other people to like me. I'm going to use a real example here. I have a friend in college, still a good friend, great person.
Yeah.
But in college, we would go and say, what do people want to eat for dinner tonight? And I would say, I don't care. Because honestly, anything was fine. You could say, we're going to go and eat like, you know, pig butt. And I would be like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And I'd be honest, right? Like, I'm totally open. I had another friend who would say, yeah, anything's fine. And this was very much like a lose win kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, if you said, okay, let's go and eat pig butt, they would say, nah, I'm not doing that. They were just saying it because they wanted like nobody else to worry about their
Yeah.
opinion, right? But the fact is, they had opinions. And I
Yeah.
would get so frustrated, kind of in the same way that you are, because I'm
Yeah.
trying to find a situation where everybody will find something to love about the dinner tonight.
Yeah.
And this other person is saying, no, 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 like, I don't have any opinions. You guys decide what you want. I'll just stay home, right? If you
Yeah.
choose something that's wrong.
Yeah.
So it ended up being frustrating, right? Like, I really wanted everybody to say their preference so we could align, right? We could
Well,
find
okay,
something.
Josh, in the future, if we're talking about getting something to eat and I say I don't care, just know there's within reasonable constraints that I
Uh,
don't care. Like, I'm not going to eat pig butt, but
I,
I just
Jesse,
want you to
here's
know.
the thing. I really don't care. I've eaten everything, right?
We're going back to that other episode where we talked about setting expectations. When I say I don't care, the general expectation is we're going to eat something edible
I
at the
mean,
bottom bar.
I'm like I won't go and choose bugs, but I've eaten bugs, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just,
yeah, exactly. When
you
I
know,
say I don't care, I mean starting at edible food. From that point on, I don't care.
I'm telling you, we got to have this conversation. It's good that we're having it right now, right? But before we decide,
Before we got into a fight about me not caring and then being mad at you because you were trying to
because I
give me a
chose
grasshopper.
pig butt and bugs on the side. Yeah, no, it's interesting though. Like I feel like that is a really hard skill, and it is the sign of a mature person when they have the things they care about, but they also care about other people, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so he mentions, yeah, character is integrity, honest and truthful,
yeah, yeah. I didn't highlight that one because it was just kind of like, yeah, that one makes
obvious.
sense. Yeah, yeah. The
But
maturity one was the blow my mind.
yes, but I actually think the big thing is the third one, which is the abundance mentality,
Yeah, yeah. I thought
right?
that was really good too.
And arguably, I think habit four is not like win-win. I think it's abundance mentality. So this whole thing goes back to the idea that there are not winners and losers, right?
Yeah,
Everybody can benefit. I think that's actually the biggest insight. Now, that being said, I've believed in abundance mentality for a long time. I mean, I'm a very big believer that we can all win. There is a solution out there that will help everybody and
yeah,
not create losers out of some people.
yeah, yeah,
But it is one of the most important thing of this whole section, which is like, do people think that when you win in life, that other people are gonna lose?
I mean, I think this character trait is very important when we talk about like in our past, we've worked with people who were very afraid about losing their jobs, right?
Yep.
And so they would build in like this job security type idea where they were the ones that had to do this job and no one else could do it. And then if you tried to do it, they would get very upset because it felt like you were trying to take their jobs over.
Hmm.
And what would they do if you took it? And so that's why I think this character trait is very important in situations like that. To know that, listen, man, there's plenty of work that needs to get done in this company. Like this, trust me, there's no way that we will be able to replace you completely if we started automating some of this stuff, right?
Yep.
Um, and I think I think that's where it's like comes really important is not only do you need to have that abundance mindset or mentality that there's plenty of work, but then you also need to figure out how to almost convince other people of that mindset as well. And
Mm.
like this, like he says in this book, if they don't have that mindset too, if both of you don't have those characteristics, coming to a win-win is nearly impossible. And in
Hmm.
that situation, it's true, right? If they're constantly trying to defend and battle their jobs, and they think that their jobs are going to go away by doing this, then there's no way you can come to a win-win agreement with them, you know? And so
So,
that's,
so
I think that's where that trait comes in very, it's very strong.
yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point. You have to convince other people that there is an abundance mentality, or that there is abundance.
Yeah.
You know, like what we're giving here. Yes, theoretically, this job that you've been doing for the past year, we can automate that away,
Yeah.
but we can teach you the automation skills,
Yeah.
right? We can teach
Exactly.
you how to do this work, and you're going to be able to, at the worst case scenario, put it on your resume
Yeah.
that you can do this stuff. But at the best case scenario, like you have a really deep understanding of all these skills, you're going to help us achieve something that we can't do, which is really understanding how this stuff works,
Yeah.
right? We're
Yeah.
building out the automation.
Yeah.
We're saying, yes, let's open these ports, let's close this, let's lock this file up. But maybe we don't understand exactly why we're doing it.
Yeah.
We just know that that's what we have to do because
Yeah.
that's what we do every time we build something up. The other person might understand exactly why we do this, and their whole job is doing it 24 hours a day. It's doing it, in the middle of their sleep because they're
Yeah.
woken up because they have to do it.
Yeah. I just had a mind blowing like after you said that. Like that's it right there. That's the tip. If you are trying to get a win-win, but you're having a hard time because the other person can't get into that win-win mindset, you need to figure out what character trait they're missing to come to a win-win, and that is how you can get them to come to a win-win, right? So
How do
in
you teach them integrity?
well, I don't know, but I'm sure there's a way, right? Whatever key
Hmm.
trait it is, because not all these key traits will apply to every single interaction you have, but one of them will. Like I just gave an example of the abundance, maturity, right? If someone is, saying, "Well, your idea is stupid or dumb," right? Then now you know it the exact characteristic they're missing that you need to get them off of, right? In order for them to come to a win-win. So yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that's a really strong tool. If
Hmm.
you're having a hard time getting someone to come to a win-win, you should read up on these characteristics and understand which one they're missing that's not getting to them to the win-win, and that is what you need to convince them of to get there.
I I have a couple quotes from this chapter that I wrote down as comments, and I was like, I care about this.
I've I have one on 251.
Whoa.
It talks about public victory.
Hmm.
And public victory does not mean victory over other people. It means success in effective interaction that brings mutual benefits resulting to everyone included. So I think that's kind of what we were talking about, how, just because it's a loot, like someone won in this public victory, but it's not like a win-lose situation because everyone won from it because they learned something from it. And I think that's like a really strong mindset to have. And that is in that abundance character.
Yeah.
So which one do you got?
So with win-win, one of the and this actually relates to habit 3,
Okay.
which is finding effectively finding people to do work for you, right? I know that's kind of a weird way to say it. We talked about the go for delegation, telling somebody
Mm,
what to do, but
yeah.
then there's actually giving somebody a clear set of tasks and having them go at it and trusting them. Because honestly, people, once they understand what the requirements are, they're going
Mm,
to be way more into it than you are. When we talk about management, you need to kind of rely on other people. They're going
mhm.
to be centering their own work. That's kind of a win for them. You're going to be able to get something done without putting in the effort yourself. That's going to
Yeah.
be a win on your side. But he talks about the win win performance agreements. With win win agreements, right? It's really important to focus on results and not the methods, right?
Hmm.
So when you talk to somebody and you say, hey, I'm your manager. I want you to get this thing done, right? The
Yeah.
thing might be set up a database for our
Yeah.
logs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you let the person go and make their own decision, right? Now, you might give really specific requirements. You might say, hey, this needs to be done. We can't spend more than $200 a year on this solution, right?
Yeah.
So, really clear requirements. Hey, this thing can't be using a custom solution. Let's use something out of the box, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you want something that is very clear, and you want something that you're just asking about the results. You're not
Yeah.
asking about the methods. You're not saying, we need to do this using this one specific thing. You let the person go with it and discover what the best method is.
Yeah.
They'll own the solution. They'll feel really good about it. And you'll also have a solution where somebody else has bought into it, right? You're winning because you have a solution. They're winning because they feel like the thing that they built is amazing.
One of his stories that he talks about is the management training story where he becomes the consultant of like this management training,
Hmm.
and the executives are like, this training's not working. And first off, I thought it was hilarious that he was like, okay, well, what should these people be able to do once this training's done? And none of the executives could give a clear answer. So they're saying it's not working. They're saying that people are coming out of it not doing a good job, but then they can't give a clear expectation of what a good job is. But well, with the story, I think it plays into like what you were just talking about, because he said, okay, why don't we come up with some KPIs or some things that they need to do to get it done. And then he took those requirements and went to the people in this training and said, how would you solve these? How would you go about, accomplishing these? And he allowed
Mm.
them to make the decision. He allowed them to decide how management training is going to work, the trainees themselves. And then what he found was they've completed it in record time because of it, because they were so passionate and they were like, this makes sense to me. Yes. And they did it so fast that the executives didn't want to promote them. They're like, whoa, wait, they're not ready. And he goes into the story and says, well, I already prepped them that this was going to happen. The executives came up with twice as hard. They joked like, if they get this done, they're better off than I was, type thing. And he goes back to them, and sure enough, they complete it in a month, faster. So I think it shows exactly what you were talking about. And it's like a really powerful story where if you give, you know, people the, a reason that to be passionate about doing something,
Mm.
obviously it's going to be way more effective to them to do it than not. And that's where the mission statement that we talked about comes in
Mm.
so strong, right? If you allow the people to construct the mission statement based off of what they should get done, they're going to follow that mission statement so much more than if you just created the mission statement, 3 levels up and then gave it to them. They're going to be like, what the heck does this mean?"
Right. Yeah, I mean, that whole thing about, like, the mission statements, right? The fact that it has to be something that is beneficial to you, right? I wanna care about this, and it has to be beneficial to the organization, right? They need to
Yeah.
care about this, right? I
Yeah.
want the organization to win, I wanna win, right?
Yeah.
I think about this often when I work at any company, right?
Yeah.
Like, I wanna gain something out of this relationship. I wanna gain new skills, I wanna gain new contacts, right?
Yeah.
Um, I wanna better understanding I wanna try some new technology, right? Whatever. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I also want the company to succeed, right?
Yeah.
I want them to be gaining, value out of my addition to the company.
Yeah.
Um, and that builds a good relationship, right? They want me, I want them.
Yeah.
It's a good combo.
Yeah.
I think this is a really solid habit. I think um getting there, right? Realizing that every kind of I don't know, I really, you said it's mainly for like business conversations, right? Like making sure that, for instance, if you buy something, that the company is also getting something out of it and you're getting something out of it.
Yeah.
I think it can really apply to like almost any interaction, right?
Mm.
You talk with a friend and say, "Hey, I'm just trying to find out like, I want dinner, right? Let's find something that works for both of us, right?"
Yeah.
It can really be in just the most innocuous situations, right?
That's
It's
true.
about thinking about how other people are coming to the situation,
Yeah.
how you come to it, and making sure that you're both coming out of this better, right,
Yeah. Yeah.
than you were before.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean you're right. There's all sorts of interactions you have, and there's gonna be a win-win-win-lose interaction. Um, it is really interesting. I do like the win-win or no deal. Um,
Mhm.
and I find that one really interesting because there's been times where I've used that.
Mm,
But the problem is with a person who has a very strong, like, win-lose mindset,
mm,
they get really, really angry and upset, and they'll take it as, like, an offense. They'll be like, "Oh, well, you're just trying to take your ball and go home." Like, but, and that's the thing, it's when you're in a situation like that, you have to kind of explain to them and make them understand that, "No, I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to come to a win-win here, and I am having a tough time finding a mutual agreement for us to come to. So I
mm.
don't think we can come to one," and walk away, right? It's a really hard approach to take, I think, especially when you're in life. Espe In a lot of different situations, you think it's impossible for you to walk away from a certain situation. Someone has to lose, someone has to win if you can't come to a win-win. But it can be really powerful to use.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those habits that I need to think a little bit more about, right?
Mm,
I need to go into situations and actually like, think about it in the raw sense, right? Like,
yeah,
how am I approaching situations, right?
yeah,
I do think, I do tend to care about how other people are coming out of interactions, largely because I think of relationships as very long term, right?
yeah,
I think like I'll probably know this person in 30 years and I don't want to like burn the bridge now, right? Where
yeah,
let's make something that works, right?
yeah, yeah, for sure.
But there is complication there, right?
Yeah,
I am I willing to sacrifice my own well-being for the sake of that relationship, right? What this guy says is if you do that, right, then you're maybe less likely to come back to the relationship, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You might be
Well,
making a good connection with somebody, but you're actually instinctively burning the bridge on your side. You're saying, this relationship is too hard to handle. I'm not
yeah.
gonna go and do it in the future." So,
Yeah. Well, again, in those situations, don't forget about maturity, right? It's very important for you to consider the other person's feelings when you're doing these things. When you do win-win or no deal, you need to be very mindful of how they're going to take it and just very politely explain to them in a positive way that we just can't come to a mutual agreement. The hope is you're not burning a bridge, right? You're not, because you're trying to be mature. You're trying to be considerate and courageous at the same time. And finding that balance is hard, but that's why it's a really important characteristic to have when coming to a win-win. So as we wrap up this episode, I want to call attention to the end of the chapter, the application suggestion.
mm,
So towards the end, he talks about how to actually apply this in your real world. And Josh, I actually think it would be really great to actually do this.
okay.
Now, the one I want to call attention to is number 5 of it. So basically the idea is like he's just think about an upcoming interaction where you will have to like come to an agreement or negotiate, right? So it goes through the steps here, but number 5 I think is like the powerhouse. And in number 5 it says deeply consider your own scripting. What is it? Is it a win-win, a win-lose, a lose-win? But based off of your scripting, how does that scripting affect your interaction with other people? Can you identify the main source of that script? Determine whether or not those scripts serve well in your current reality. Now, I think that's really powerful in number 5 because what he's suggesting is that your own script, right? You might think you want win-win, but if you're scripted, you have this very strong paradigm of lose-win, for instance. How you interact in that situation is going to dictate what you say, what you think, you know, what what you'll do. And so I think it would be really powerful to kind of think about, okay, what is my own scripting do? And what is my natural go-to? And how do I break free from that script?
Yeah, it's funny, this question of, like, can you identify the main source of that script? That's tough, you know? Like I said, I think I used to be, I probably still have vestiges of it, but I used to think of myself as lose-win, right?
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Because I don't know, I think of my father as being, like, a very win-win person,
Mhm.
right? I think of
Well,
other people in my life, like, it's really hard to figure out exactly where that comes from,
yeah.
but the question of, like, whether or not these scripts serve you well in your current reality, like, I think of myself as more win-win right now,
Mhm.
right? I do really want, you know, essentially to rise, to have everybody
Mhm.
rise up, right? I want everybody to be better off. I don't want anybody to be a loser.
Yeah.
Right? And that question of, like, determining whether or not those scripts serve well in your current reality, I'm like, I don't know, my current reality is pretty good. So,
Well,
I
don't
don't know
forget
what they
the
are
first
right now, but I'm
don't
doing
forget the
fine.
first important objective to this is to think of an upcoming interaction wherein you'll be attempting to reach an agreement. So you got to think of a very specific one, right? Like, your daughter's not old enough, but if your daughter was old enough, it'd be like, okay, you're going to go play games with her and you know how to play the game better than she does. Like,
Yeah.
are you going to think lose win? Probably. Why? You should beat her and show her what it's like to
But yeah, that's the thing. It's like the
but yeah.
definition of lose-win with a game is so embedded in the game, right? Like, there is a winner and a loser,
Mhm.
but, like, me, the winning can be just playing the game with her, right? Just
Mhm.
seeing how she plays the game, right?
Yeah.
The actual end result of the game can be totally not tied to the game
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think games and a lot of other sports competitions, right, that have like a winner and a loser are bad ones to compare.
Yeah. Well, again, it doesn't need to be win lose. It could be win win even if someone loses.
Yeah.
That's the
Well,
mindset that you
I
have to
I
script.
I will say I love the games. This is just going on the game side, right? Like I love the board games that tend to be entirely cooperative, right? You
Yeah.
all win as a group, you all lose as a group, right? I don't know if you've played like Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, or wait, is that
Yeah.
is that
That's
what
the
it's called?
bomb diffusing game. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Keep Talking, yeah, and Nobody Explodes. Where it's like we're all working in this together, right? We either all win as a team or we lose as a team, but like
Yeah.
nobody made a mistake, right? Like we all just need
I
to
mean,
improve
if the
our
bomb
winning.
explodes, someone made a mistake. And I'm going to
Yes,
kick them off my team. How dare they tell me to snip the wrong wire?
but it's like these kind of games are much better where like from my perspective, where
Hmm.
everybody's kind of like doing their best and having a good time and I don't know. You can have a situation where like you never there's no losers, right? Even when you all collectively lose, you're like,
Ah.
I see what I should have done there. That was fun.
Mm.
I don't know. I haven't played in years. It was very fun the last time I played it, but
Well, as we wrap up this episode, we'll be moving on to the next chapter,
Habit 5.
Habit 5. And Habit 5 is one of I think one of the more powerful paradigm shifts I've had when I read this book the first time. So I'm kind of excited to talk about that habit. So if you haven't gotten the book yet while you're listening, you shouldn't have listened to this episode. You should have turned it off, went and bought the book and read up to this beforehand. But it's not too late. Go buy the book, read Habit 5, and then we'll get into it in our next episode. And that was our containerized conversation. I'm Jesse Caffarelli.
I'm Josh Warhurst. Have a great night.